Hello and welcome to 2 Pints of Maggots and a Packet of Hooks, the fishing podcast. It's a brand new year, so a happy new year and a big welcome to the third series. It's 2022 and we're going to carry on where we left off with big names in fishing and also taking a review of anything interested in the press. And also in the tackle shed, looking at anything that's caught the eye. However, for this year, we're going to have a little bit of a twist on it, and we're going to start looking through a little bit of the archives. So in the tackle shed, I've dug out some real old school magazines, and rather than going through just solely the latest printed press and also what we've seen on social media, we're going to refer back to how it used to be as well. So let's look at some tackle prices back in the day. Let's look at some of the methods and tactics. How much have they changed? Who knows? So we'll have a little review of that as well. But in the press pack, something different. And what we're going to do on this episode to kick off 2022 is we've invited a very, very special guest to talk about their concept and the impacts that they are having on angling. And it's Dave Lyons from Tackling Minds. So without further ado, let's have a chat with Dave and let's see the wonderful work that this charity is currently doing. Hi and welcome to the Press Pack. And as I said in my intro, to kick off 2022, something very, very different. You may remember that earlier last year, around episode 2 or 3, I discussed some of the interesting issues that were raised in the angling media around mental health being raised and fishing being a solution to mental health problems as part of the NHS's new programme. Well, since that time, one particular charity has sprung to mind many, many times, and it's been across the press, getting lots and lots of great plaudits. And it's called Tackling Minds. And we're lucky enough today to be with one of the main brains behind Tackling Minds, and that is Dave Lyons. So Dave, just before we get cracking, thank you for joining me. And I just want to ask you the question to introduce the organisation and the charity to the listeners.
So, thanks for having me on to start with. So basically, Tackling Minds, we use the many benefits of fishing, as us anglers know, to basically help people, aid people who are possibly struggling with mental health problems, addiction. They come from low social backgrounds, etc. So anybody who's generally struggling.
So how did the idea come about? I mean, I know of the organisation because you utilise a water from a club that I used to be in when I lived in Manchester, Radas, Rochdale and Angling Districts Society. I know that you guys have been taking people on there. So how did it come about, getting anglers on the bank, if you like?
Yeah, that's great. I didn't realise that you was a member of Radas. Yeah, a great water, and what a supportive bunch of people they've been as well. So the idea about Tackling Minds came about through my own personal struggles with my own mental health. I suffered, and still do to this date, with generalised anxiety disorder. It sort of led me on a bit of a dark path. I used to self-medicate with alcohol, and for me, it was my only go-to crutch that sort of got me through the day. And unfortunately, I sort of became really dependent upon that to the point where I was physically addicted to it. So over the last few years, I'm 18 months sober to date. I've really struggled on and off with my alcohol addiction. I've been in and out of detoxes 4 to date, and there was nothing more beneficial than getting back out on the bank. I'd not been fishing for going on to nearly 20 years, and that love for the sport has never left me. So yeah, I could see what it was doing for my mental health, my well-being. It was better than any medication I've been trialed on. I've been on 1,000,001 different ones, talking therapies, counsellors, you name it, I've been there. And again, doing nothing that compared to what I was getting out of fishing again. So I wanted to take that idea, knowing that if it's worked for me after struggling for so many years, it's surely got to work for other people. So I started a Facebook group. If it was helping out one other person, getting another person on the bank, then great. If it was helping a few others, then even better. And just things really gained traction from then on. It was picked up by a number of the larger tackle organisations, be it Angling trust some of the bigger tackle companies. So Angling Direct and Shimano have been extremely supportive in what we're trying to achieve. Now, we've got a number of volunteers that help out. Without the volunteers, this wouldn't be possible. So, yeah, it was my idea initially, but I always, again, without the volunteers, we wouldn't be able to help out as many people as we do.
Which, one of the things that I think stands out, or a lot of people think about big tackle manufacturers and sort of bait companies and whatever, I guess they sometimes leveled at them that they don't put enough back into angling. And I think what you're demonstrating and what you're saying there is now you're starting to get back in. I mean, I had one earlier on last year when we was talking about with Keith Arthur about get hooked on fishing, which helps people with disadvantaged backgrounds, a lot of youngsters, have a go at fishing and just take the stresses and strains away from life just to go fishing for the day. And after that, we then got Tommy Pickering and Fuca. They sent a load of bait, and that was a real highlight for me, just by having that conversation, sparked an interest and then got the ball rolling and got some free bait to that charity. So it's not that I think that the tackle companies and bait companies don't want to help. I think it's just that there's not that many charities and not that many organisations that do the sort of things that you're doing. And now that you're getting a lot of exposure across the angling press as well, I guess it's growing from strength to strength.
Yeah, it is massively going from strength to strength. And, to be recognised from some of the larger tackle companies, I think it is such a great thing that, it's great what they do in terms of how they run the business and what they supply to us anglers. But, to give something back to the sport that we all love is amazing. And to actually have received the initial emails, or if it was a message via Facebook I mentioned the two companies, Angling Direct and the Shimano, but there has been a number of others as well. It was really overwhelming. And, they've always said, if you want anything, if you need anything, just let us know. If it's organising an event, if it's tackle, if it's clothing for your volunteers, and that's just like the small part of it. And it's still sort of in its early days, and we are just like skimming the surface with this at the minute. But there's the support to come further down the line, and the ideas that we've got moving forward with the support of these organisations is going to be really exciting, and just what the sport's definitely needed.
Yeah, well, for me, I mean, if one small part from me, if this gets in front of one person that then maybe gets in touch with you guys, and we'll go through that in a bit, how we can get in touch and how people can sort of reach out to you, then that's my job done as well. One small part that I can play. What I did notice, though, and I found quite interesting, we've seen some big names obviously talking about your organisation and the volunteers, etc. The one that stood out for me is a bit of a hero of mine was Ricky Atton. And I saw that he's involved, which is fantastic. And I also saw a great message from Matt Hayes the other day. So how have these famous faces, how are they getting involved?
Yeah, so getting Ricky on board was unbelievable. There is a bit of a backstory with Ricky and my relationship with him. So he's very good friends with my other half, Jenny. And when I was going through my bad time with my addiction issues, Ricky kind of went out of his way to video call me on a number of occasions. Just, he could resonate with what I was going through, and just used to phone me up and just give me that a bit of moral support. It was, again, I use the word overwhelming. It really was. To get a phone call, to be getting that support of a 4-time world boxing champion, and things progressed from then. He saw me go through my recovery and come out of the better side of it, thankfully. And it wasn't long before I came out of detox. I got back into my fishing and came up with the idea. And I then got to know Ricky on a personal level. I'd go to his house. My other half doesn't live too far from him. So he became pretty pally with him, and I explained what I was doing with Tackling Minds, and again he could really resonate to the idea I had. He always says, if it's boxing, if it's football, if it's fishing, if it's putting your mind to that a different output, and you're getting outside, you're engaging with other people, then it's a no-brainer. So after knowing Ricky over probably just going over a year and a half now, a little bit longer. I was at his house one evening, and I ended up cooking for ourselves and a few of our friends, and just later on in the evening got chatting. And he's always like, he's such a down-to-earth bloke, and he'll always go out of his way to ask how I am, as in how is my mental health and stuff. And we got chatting about tackling minds as we always do, and he'd already been supporting the page through his social media. I just said, how would you feel about being an ambassador, with your background, with your own mental health? And, I didn't know what he was going to say. I thought there might be some legalities because obviously he's also a brand. And he just, without any interruption, it was just, yeah, of course I will. And then before you know it, he said, this is what I can bring, this is what I can do, this is what I will do. So again, like with the organisations I mentioned, things with Ricky, it's still very early days, but we've got some really exciting things that, are in the pipeline that he's more than eager to help out, which is it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I love it. And like you say, he's had his own battles and coming out the other side with his gym and that. And, he's found his way of sort of getting himself on the straight and narrow. And you have with the fishing. Have you got any examples? Like you say, it's early days, I know. But have you got any examples of maybe some of these early adopters that you've took out? They've been on Rad Aspen and other waters, done some fishing, caught a few, who have stuck at it and have really found the benefits and now become full-time anglers? Or are they anglers already? And it's just something that they want to do for their own mental health? Or have you got a mixture of the two?
Yeah, we've got a bit of a mixture of the two, but I've got some unbelievable stories that like spring to mind when you were just saying that then. And then, so there was one individual who came from an organisation we work with called Healthier Heroes. Now they're Army veterans who suffer with PTSD. Ronnie, the guy's called. He won't mind me mentioning his name. And he used to he'd come along with the group one afternoon, and he stood behind everybody and was like, "You got to sit down and have a go." And he just wasn't interested. You could just see it, just like, this isn't for me. And we talked him around, got him to sit down, sat fishing a pole at one of the commercial fisheries, and before you know, he's catching. So come to the end of the session, he's still there, sat down, enjoying himself, and the minibus was waiting for him to leave, and he's like, I don't want to leave. We had to tell him, you're going to have to go, otherwise the coach is going to be leaving without you. So he's one individual who now comes week in, week out. He's got himself a rod license, as the other guys who work with from Healthier Heroes. Yeah, and they come week in, week out. They're learning. We've had classroom sessions with them, and they've now got their own tackle, and they're just really eager to get involved and want to continue. And again, some of them have said some great stories of when they've caught some great fish. One of them, John, caught a fish. I think it was around 15-pound carp on the pole. He was saying, this is the best day out I've had in I can't even remember. And just to hear, to hear that feedback and to get the impact, to see the work our volunteers are doing, is amazing.
No, I love it. It's just a great thing. I mean, now for me, it's synonymous. We talk about Ricky Atton. We're talking about my ex-club water, if you like it. So I'm thinking Northwest, but I guess that Tackling Minds is spreading its wings. And are the events currently happening or planned to happening with other volunteers around the country?
When I first started this, and to this day now, the amount of clubs across the country who say, "Can we use your model? Can we use the name Tackling Minds to do something similar to what you're doing?" And it's not quite straightforward because of the legalities involved in it, in terms of needing a DBS. You need your level 2. Somebody needs to have a level 2 angling coach award just for insurance purposes. But we are in talks with a couple of organisations actually to roll this out on a national scale. It's very early days at the minute, but we're due to sit down in the next few weeks to basically discuss getting it out across the country, which at the minute it's in Manchester. Just Manchester alone, we're inundated with requests for people to wanting to come fishing. So yeah, the opportunity to get this nationally is huge, and to help as many people as possible. So that's our aim, and that's the direction it's going in. So we've just got to continue chipping away, doing what we're doing, and let's see what happens down the line.
Well, I just got to say a big, massive sort of thank you for joining me on the podcast today and sort of spreading the word. And we're looking forward to the plans that we've got moving forward. It's probably a whirlwind for you. What you're talking a year or so into it, and already things are growing massively, which is just testament to the hard work that you've put in, and obviously the volunteers as well, and the support from the various tackle companies. So just before we finish off, Dave, give us a shout as to how we can touch base with you, and if there are any clubs that want to get involved with this expansion, or if there's anybody up in Manchester, the Northwest, that want to get involved. So give us a shout out what they need to do.
So if there are any clubs or individuals for that matter who'd like to get on board and join the team of volunteers and help out in whatever capacity it may be, you can contact us via our social media pages. So there is Facebook, just under Tackling Minds, as it is on Instagram. Or our email contact is fishing@tacklingminds.org. Yeah, and just drop us a message. We get back to everybody who contacts us.
All right, Dave. Well, thank you very, very much for joining us on the very first episode of the podcast for 2022. And I wish you all the luck in the world.
Thank you very much for having me on the podcast and showing us the support. I really do appreciate it. So thank you.
So there we go. That was Dave Lyons from Tackling Minds, giving us a bit of insight into the concept, how it came about, how his own struggles with mental health born out this fantastic organisation that he's put together, and is now sort of, growing organically very, very quickly. And fingers crossed to him and the rest of the team that this can be a national rollout and can help more and more people. Okay, well, moving on to the normal press pack, if you like, where we tend to look through the angling media on a weekly basis, or the monthly magazines, or anything on social media. And as I said in the introduction piece on the podcast, and we're going to do things slightly different in terms of looking back through the archives and just seeing where we are today in relation to how angling has been or was over recent years. And it's really fascinating. I dug out a ton of old magazines that I sort of put together, from the earliest one being 1993 right the way up to present day. And as I've been flicking through and having a look, I found some of the things really, really fascinating. The tackle shed piece, we'll look at an interesting point there where we can look at the prices of various items of equipment from those days right up to present day, and sort of compare the two. You probably have to be of a certain age to appreciate some of the stuff that we'll go through, but as anglers, sadly, we are getting on a bit now. The average age of an angler is increasing. It's really important that we try and introduce more and more youngsters and new blood into the sport. But the first one, so to give you an idea of the things that I've been looking at, magazine-wise, as a match angler myself, it was obviously that style of fishing, if you like, that I started picking up when I was a youngster, around sort of 13, 14 years of age. I fished my first match when I was 13, well 12, going into 13, about 1993. And that's when I started buying the likes of Match Fishing magazine, and one of my personal favourites was one that was an offshoot of the Angling Times, and it was called Angling Plus. Now, let me pick up my magazine here, because there was this one. So we're going back. I tried to stay as close to the month as possible that we're talking about. And this one was December 1993, issue 5 of Angling Plus. Darren Cox, our good old friend there, I actually sent him a photo of this front cover, asked him whether he remembered it, and he does. He actually has a version of this in his office. Darren Cox on the front, he's on, it looks like Skanderborg Lake in Denmark. These were the days when the embassy pairs and matches like that across Europe were very, very popular. And this was one that caught my eye because it's one that I remember rushing to the local paper shop to buy, because there was it was a festival special, if you like. There's a dozen or so pages talking about different festivals across Europe, Ireland being the main one, lots about Denmark. But then there's this really cool article, it's called Double Dutch, where it talks about anglers fishing the same swim in Holland on these big rivers that run through. And pairs match is slightly different. Whereas we're probably used to having a blind pairs that's drawn after a match, or a pairs match where we pair up with our partner and we fish different areas of the fishery. This is where two anglers literally sit on the same peg, which brings a whole new dimension to pairs matches. So I always remember that, and that was sort of fascinating. And I flicked through the magazine. There's a very young Martin Green, who, if anybody knows, Martin Green is pretty sort of high up at Daiwa. This is where he's on Willen Lake. Canal fishing legend Dave Barrow, if anybody remembers him, he's in here. But the main one, if I go to the news section, is this fascinating piece around the cost of angling. Now, what we mean by the cost of angling is essentially the cost of fishing an event or fishing a match at the time. And it's called limiting the cost. And it says, how much bait do you need to compete? And there's various fisheries that have been chosen to talk about, what it costs to enter an event, and if they've got a tackle shop on site, how much does it cost? So it says limiting the cost. The cost of competing in a match seems to have escalated in recent seasons, with bait being one of the major contributors. We asked the question, should there be bait limits? And then it talks about a typical open contest can now cost a matchman around £40, while even club anglers face a bill between £10 and £15 for some of their contests. So that gives you an idea. Now think of what you spend now whilst entering a match, whether it be on the club scene or an open, whether it be a natural or a commercial. There's obviously differences in cost. So the four venues that were chosen by Angling Plus, and again, this is December 1993, just to give you an idea of these prices. So Willow Park, the matches at the time were run by John Raisin, Will's dad, £22 all in. That includes £3 peg fee and a £2 winner takes all. Other organisers may have variable pools. Morelands Farm, tenner all in, that's a £3 peg fee, sometimes an additional £2 super pool. Decoy Lakes, £15 all in, that's a £5 peg fee, and some organisers have an additional £5 super pool. And Docklow Pools, £10 all in, which includes a £2 peg fee. Baits, prices on site. So Willow Park, maggots £2 a pint, casters £3 a pint, hemp £1 a pint, and a kilo of continental ground bait £2.50. Morelands Farm, maggots £1.90 a pint, casters £2.40 a pint, hemp 65p a pint. Decoy Lakes, maggots £1.80 a pint, casters, hemp, and continental ground bait are not for sale. Docklow Pools, maggots £1.65 a pint, casters £2.20 a pint. And just to think about your breakfast, for those of you that like to have a brekkie before you fish your match, Willow Park, full breakfast including tea or coffee, £2.50. Morelands Farm, full breakfast with tea or coffee, £3. Decoy Lakes, no breakfast available at the time. Docklow Pools, full breakfast with tea or coffee, £3.50. So this is going back, over sort of 25 years ago, 26, 27 years ago, and they were the prices. So compare that now to what you're paying for your maggots, your casters. Obviously, the majority of our fishing is now done with pellet. So does that mean that pellet, in relative terms, is cheaper than it was to fish back then? We didn't all have bait fridges and the like back in the day. So anyway, there's another piece here about bait prices in tackle shops, and it's chosen. Some of these tackle shops are still with us, some of us are not. In the north, Highfield Angling in Bolton, maggots there were at the time £1.30. Casey Angling in Surrey, £2.20. Wade's in Peterborough, £2. And Veals in Bristol, £2. Pinkies, Highfield £1.50, Casey Angling £2.20, Wade's £2.20, Veals £2. Casters, this is the big one. Casters now, some are over £4 a pint. Casters at Highfield Angling at the time, £1.95. Casey Angling with £3. Wade's in Peterborough £2.65, and Veals in Bristol £2.75. So think about your fishing now and work out, actually, has it gone up that much in these last 20 plus years, or is it still all relative? Just think about it. A bag of pellets, what's that, $2.50? You can normally get a couple of sessions out of them, so it's not too bad. And even thinking about the cost of bloodworm and joker, we can probably go into that another time as well. I think now you're looking at about 18 quid for half a kilo of joker with a max pack of bloodworm, 20 quid maybe. I'm thinking back in the day when I used to fish around that time, probably about £8 for a match pack of Bloodworm and Joker, so that certainly has gone up. But maggots, casters, yeah, you can see the prices. Very, very interesting. On to more modern news, and in this month's magazines, first of all, Match Fishing, which is a very good edition, January 22. I have been critical a little bit of Match Fishing over previous podcasts around them printing articles which seem out of sync with the season. So, we was into autumn and winter, and they were still showing lots of features that were clearly covered in summer, etc. Well, we're bang up to date now, and everything in this edition very much is of recent ilk, certainly the last sort of several weeks or so. And it's difficult in winter because of the fluctuations in temperature, which can have a massive impact on our catch rates. Just a couple of degrees lower than a steady settled spell, and it can throw everything, some cold rain going in, etc. So it's a bit of a difficult one for winter. But these tactics in here certainly hit the mark. And also, what I've noticed with Match Fishing as well is a lot of diary pieces in here. You regularly have Andy Power's diary piece. Matt Godfrey's in there. He's covering his month off, etc. So that's very, very up to speed. But the first article which really caught my eye, I'm sure we can all, those match anglers listening, can take from, is our good mate Alex Doherty, who recently did our podcast with us when we did the fishery special. He's at Lindholm, of course, but it's called The Long and Short of It. And essentially what he's doing is he's going through something which I really struggle with. When I fish, I'm not great at fishing a feeder at all. Sort of chuck it and chance it and hope it goes round sort of thing with me. But he talks through the selection process of where he's fishing. There's 3 swims in open water, how he approaches it. It's Loco Lake as well, which is a big open water for those that don't know it. And sort of mixing it up between a hybrid or a bomb, and when to choose which, in what circumstances and why, and really goes through as to how he approaches an open water swim, which looks pretty featureless when you look at the imagery on the article. And I think that's one well worth the read, one that you'd certainly think everybody would get something out of. The next one which caught my eye was Josh Newman. It's called Hatching a Plan. Josh is from near me. He fishes this part of the world. Young lad, 19. He's an England Youth International. And what he's done is he's jumped across over to Rycroft Fisheries, which is sort of Derbyshire way, where there's a real competitive autumn and winter league going on, silverfish. Some great names on there. Sean Ashby, who we'll be talking to on this podcast. Darren Bickerton, previous guest as well, and a whole host of top names in the East Midlands fishing Rycroft. This young fella, Josh, he's never fished there before, and he tells you how to hatch a plan, clues in the name, to approach a venue that he's never fished before against some great opposition. He talks through it, gives you an idea about his mixes, why he does what he does, the rigs, etc., as you would expect, when to use certain baits throughout the session, what to expect. Lovely net of fish he's put together. I won't tell you where he came in the match, but let's say he framed, did very well on a lovely net of silverfish. And finally, again, another one that I think ticks the boxes for this time of the year, Will Raisin. Again, he tends to do these monthly features in match fishing, and always relevant to the time of the year. Bit of a difficult one because Wills tend to be on Gold Valley, which of course is his fishery, so he's never going to struggle, which does throw your mind a little bit. But what he's done on this one, he's chosen the Bat Lake, and the Bat Lake is what it says on the tin. There is a bat house in the middle on the island, or there was last time I went, and it's slightly different from those more well-known waters such as Middle or Syndicate or the Gold Lakes. It's a little bit smaller, a little bit more intimate. And again, he's talking about mixing it up between a method feeder and a pole line in the middle of winter and seeing where we go, mainly targeting F1s and carp. So again, a lot of us do fishing for those species at this time of the year. So that's one to check out as well. So check out the latest version of Match Fishing. I guess one final thing actually to note in here is the venue detective, Andy May's monthly piece. He's on a venue that I've not been for ages, but I used to really enjoy up in the northwest called Old Huff. It's in Cheshire, not far from where Andy May resides. And it's a cracking venue, loads of different choices of waters, mainly snake type canals, but there's a bit of everything for the pleasure angler as well. And he talks you through approaching that. So if you are around the Cheshire northwest area, if you've not been to Old Huff before, it's a really, really good venue, and he talks through it. And whilst we talk about Andy, the news broke, I guess, recently regarding him leaving his sponsorship with MAP and moving on to Pastures New. And that's not been released yet, but I think there's lots of guesses online. So when we talk about social media, it's being mentioned around Guru because he did the recent Guru podcast. It's talking about Matrix because he could be going there with his mate, Jamie Hughes. Who knows? I'm sure that will all come out in the wash. But I found that fascinating. When we talk about the press pack, we can't dismiss social media, of course, because there's so many rumors on there and sort of fake news in some respects as well. So yeah, let's see where Andy May winds up. Now, as we're in the press pack and we talk about the archives, the magazines, old and new, etc., there is a bit of a trend taking place. We know that printed press is sort of on the decline. There's a lot of people that like to physically have that magazine in their hands, but there's also so much information available online that people are sort of gravitating towards online content as well. Loads of good stuff on YouTube for completely free. You know, I always think if I had all this information to hand when I was a youngster, then you'd learn so much more. And I don't know, it's a difficult one because as I'm reading through these older magazines, the detail is absolutely there. The secrets aren't being kept from these top anglers back in the day right through. It's just a case of putting it into practice, I suppose. But with a video material online, I guess seeing it put into practice is a different beast. And what I've noticed, I went through some files I had on my desktop as well. And I came across an old magazine I used to subscribe to. It's an online magazine, if you like. It's Will Ray's, and we just spoke about it. It's called The World Champions Angler. This was from 10 years ago. So January 2012, number 36. And these, I guess, were the first iterations of a combination of written word and backed up by video content. It was by V2V, which is V2V Angling Productions, run by Brian Gay, and he was the guy that I guess started off with these subscription models. And I think I used to pay, I don't know, a one-off fee, 30 quid or whatever, and it got you the year's worth of content. And it's, as I say, it's written and it's printed, but as you read through it on the PDF file, there's these sections where it says click for the video. And the video opens up and Will explains basically what he's just said in written form, but it brings it to life that little bit more. Different people have different ways of learning and retaining information. And by having both written and visual, it's going to appeal to different people. So then I thought I'd come a bit more modern and just have a look at all these subscription models that are online. And there's loads, of course. I think Fishing is one that's been going for such a long time. It's Des Ship did tons and tons of those subscription model, and you could watch his videos. Nick Speed has picked that up. You've got the Winning Ways, Andy May, Jamie Hughes, we just spoke about. Yes, loads of content online on YouTube, but of course they've got their subscription piece where you get extra material. So I was having a little look through and working out, is any of this worth looking at? And I eventually settled, and I have subscribed on something called The Edge. And if you're not familiar with The Edge, it's by Lee Kerry and Rob Wotton. So it's anglingacademy.co.uk. You subscribe to it on a monthly basis. I think it's $5 a month, something like that. And you get extra video content. And one of them, I've only watched one so far, but it really opens your eyes. It's an underwater piece. And The Edge is one of these, I think Barry Zimmerman is the main guy behind this, where he's thinking about underwater footage and how the feed's going in, how the fish are intercepting. You've got Rob watching on the camera, Lee on the pole, the box is on the canal. And there's another piece as well around fishing for carp. And watching this underwater footage really does open up your eyes. And it was that tempted me to have a go for research purposes more than anything, to look at this bonus content and see what are we actually getting for this $5 a month. And as I say, watching that first one looks really, really good. So far, so good. There are loads of other stuff. You know, Paul Holland has got his TV subscription channel as well, and so it's changing the written format, the printed press, through to now these YouTube subscription models and channels, and you know it's not new. As I say, the Will Raisin one is 10 years old, and that was a mixture of the two, which I actually quite liked. I seem to remember that Match Fishing did something called I think it was Match Fishing Plus, and they were again, a written piece where it would open up video content to back up what they were trying to say. Yeah, have a little look around. It might be something that wets your whistle. For me, we'll still keep going through social media and seeing what people are saying. And of course, the weekly Angling Times, I don't even get that delivered anymore. I have that on an app. So there's a different way of viewing your content as well. So lots to get stuck into. Finally, let's have a think and a little look at improve your course fishing. So with improve your course fishing, we're very much in predator season. Fish are fattening up, thinking about spawning, springtime, March, April, way before our normal course fish do. So predator angling, for those listening that are into that style of fishing, there's lots in improve your course fishing. First piece is fishing still waters for big perch. That's Brian Scholes utilising the likes of prawns, big worms, and we know that there's some whopping great big perch in our commercial fisheries nowadays, and it's how do you approach those? It could be prawns, mussels, etc., and how to approach them. Also, Duncan Sharman does a piece on pre-baiting for pike. And when you think about it, that absolutely makes sense. When you're fishing for a shark in the sea, you would put in a chum mix, a rubber dubby as they call it, and they'd follow that scent trail, and that would be the idea, pre-baiting. Well, of course, the same thing makes sense for pike, especially when you're fishing on these big open waters, reservoirs. How are you attempting to extract pike into your area on such a big venue? And he's using the likes of a bait boat, chopped up dead fish, and sort of trying to create that scent trail and get the fish into the area, which absolutely, of course, makes sense for these predators. Another one, the predator theme carries on. That's why I mentioned with this Improve Your Course Fishing edition, there's a lot of predator action in here. More of a match style. Chap called Chris Selling, he's down in I think he's fishing the Berkshire Canal around that area. Worm your way to a net of canal perch. Perch are really, really important and matches on natural waters at this time of the year because they can really bulk up your weight and in some instances can be worth targeting on their own, interspersed with a few, silvers, or if you get amongst skimmers and bream, great. But perch are weighty, muscular fish. And this demonstrates exactly how you could approach a swim on a canal. For perch, you could call them a bonus fish, or you could call them the actual target species. And of course, worm is a fantastic bait to approach. What we then have in Improve Your Course Fishing from page 57 for nearly 20 pages is called The Bucket List of Venues. And it's a great idea to kick off a new year and give the readership an idea of new venues that they can approach for this year and what's in there. So there's 20 pages of fisheries, from catching a mixed bag, docklow pools on a waggler, through to, catching big bags of carp at Todber Manor, big picturesque waters to catch bream and tench, so old Berry Hill fisheries, barbel on the Trent, predators, pike, tench, chub, loads to have a little look at. Regardless of what your style of fishing is, there will be something in this bucket list of venues to have a little look at. So that's quite a nice way to kick the year off and give the readership an understanding of where they can get to and at what they can catch whilst they're out and about. So Improve Your Course Fishing, good one this month, as is match fishing. So now let's crack on and get to the big chat with former world champion Sean Ashby.
Teddy Fisher Baits specialise in the manufacture of fishing ground bait and additives. We combine a 40-year-old proven fish catching recipe and the experience of our skilled team. Fishing is an adventure, and here at Teddy Fisher, we strive to make that adventure a success. Go to www.teddyfisher.co.uk to see our full range of baits.
Hi and welcome to the Big Chat. On this very first episode of 2022, we've got an extra special treat for you because we've got another former world champion. It's Sensas and Starlet Stalwart 2012 world champion, Mr. Sean Ashby. How are you, sir?
I'm very good. You?
Yeah, not too bad at all, mate. Happy New Year and all that.
Yes, and you, yes.
Now, on these podcasts, if you're not familiar, we have a bit of a theme. It's called Past, Present and Future. And essentially, we talk a little bit about where you've come from, how you got to where you were, and what your future plans are. So let us into a bit of a secret. First of all, what is the secret with Derby? Because you are the third angler from that neck of the woods that I've had on this podcast, and you can all fish a bit. Is there something in the water?
I was thinking about it the other day, funnily enough, if you ever have to sort of put a team in from a certain sort of geographical area, I was thinking Derby would probably have the best team in the country with you got Cameron Hughes, you got Darren Bickerton, you got Lee Wright would probably qualify, got Nigel Bull, Nathan Hughes obviously. So we have a fantastic team. Really. I don't know what it's all about, but
I know. Not too bad at all.
I think we were very lucky when we was younger. Certainly, sort of Nathan and myself and whatever, because the fishing was so good round our way. We had the Trent on the doorstep.
Yeah.
The Trent and Mersey Canal was very good in them days as well. So I think we was lucky that there was a lot of fishing around our area, really.
Well, I know when I had this discussion, we kicked off with Darren, and he was talking about some of the real well-run clubs that groundwater, people like Earl of Harrington, places like this. Was that how you started? Was it through a club, or was it with friends, family? How did you kick off your fishing career?
Well, it all started, I suppose, obviously when I was young. We used to go away in a caravan. My mum and dad used to have a spinning rod and go and catch a few fish out of the sea. And that sort of started me off. And then one of my mates his dad used to go fishing on the Trent, and he used to tag along a little bit then.
Yeah.
And it sort of just spiraled off from there, really. In the end, there was like 5 or 6 of us go fishing nearly every day down the canal or the Trent. Like say Nathan Hughes of this world and Darren and what. And it sort of went on from there, really. And then eventually, I joined a club called Moorways Club, which has got some. In those days, club fishing was massive. You'd maybe have 12 matches a year. You'd have 2 away days where you go to Welland or the Witham or the Coach and that.
On the Coach, yeah.
On the Coach, yeah. But a box of beer on the back seat and all that sort of caper. And it was just great learning, really. Some great anglers in it was a real good club. Some great anglers in there. And they sort of took me under the wing, and they sort of taught me how to fish, really.
Are any of those boys still knocking about, still with us? Do you see them still fishing?
Sadly, not. No. They were probably in their 40s then. I mean, I was like 16, so
yeah.
Unfortunately, most of them are probably gone now. Certainly the ones, and I see 1 or 2, but the main anglers in them have gone, I'm afraid, now.
Well, I guess that's a bit of a theme. We can touch upon that a little bit about trying to get more youngsters into fishing and whatnot, and how you see it, certainly in the international scene as well. But moving from there, then, from that local club, do you remember your first match?
I remember being at school and fishing in those days. We had an inter-schools competition. I remember that.
Okay.
We fished on I can't really remember how many schools put teams in. But there was a big match all at Willington, all down the canal round there, all the way down to Fitton, I think. And strangely enough, I come second with about 12 ounces, I think.
Hey, not a bad start, is it?
And I won a fishing rod, and that, a decent sort of 13-foot float rod. And again, that just sort of all helped really to get me more into it, really. It
does. And then was it like, did you continue with the junior section then? Is that how it developed?
Yeah, that's right. Within sort of the area, there was a real good junior scene. I think there was something like 40 or 50 kids on a Monday night or a Tuesday night would go and fish.
Yeah, brilliant.
On the canals and the rivers. And yeah, it was a massive scene in them days. We'd go on a Tuesday and fish the kids' matches. There'd be a 50 or 60 peg open on the canal on the Wednesday. It was great times, really.
Yeah, and this is the thing. I mean, I think it's a theme throughout the podcast when we've had these discussions is, you just can't envisage a 60-peg kids match of an evening after school nowadays, can you? It's all, football and PlayStations and just other distractions and whatnot. And
I don't even think the fishing club scene is the same. I don't know. We'd have a meeting every Monday night, which was an excuse, obviously, for them all to go to the pub for
of course, yeah.
3 hours, but. It was great. I was 15 or 16 and whatever, and it was just it's how I like to fish, really. It's the social side is still, quite a big part of my fishing, really. I know we were supposed to take it really serious and that, but I do like going back after the matches and having a bit of a laugh and talking.
No, absolutely. I think that's born out of the team fishing as well, I guess. So was that was it a junior team that you was in before you developed into sort of like senior team fishing?
We fished with one of the local clubs, or the major club in the area that owned a lot of the water, was Derby AA, which has sadly gone now. And they had a national team, and I can't remember how old I was, probably about 17, and I joined Derby AA as well as fishing for the club. So I started fishing nationals at probably 17 or 18. Winter leagues, obviously, and then the winter leagues were always on the Trent or the Canal, and then obviously we was fishing against some brilliant anglers, the Starlets and Isaac Walton and people like that. And it went up from there, really.
Yeah, it's one of those, isn't it? Because you're learning off other people, you're developing all the time, you're bouncing ideas off of individual. So, I mean, what do you think about the state of team fishing nowadays, then, Sean? Because for me, I think it's buoyant. I think it's coming back. I think there's talk now of nationals extending beyond Division 2 and perhaps creating a new one as well. So, what do you think of the state of match fishing, team fishing right now?
Team fishing? No, I'm not quite as enthusiastic. Not quite as not enthusiastic. It's not the right word. Excited as yourself by the sound of it. I'm not so sure, really. I just think there's so much emphasis now placed on individual matches and big money matches.
That's where I'm going. That's where I'm going with it.
Don't get me wrong. It's not a bad thing, but there's very little to gain out of team fishing. And I think the youngsters now haven't been brought up through them clubs. They haven't had that sort of social side, and I feel the worse for it, really, to be honest.
Well, that's where I'm going with it, because it was this conversation's cropped up many times. I love to get people's different thoughts on it. Is it normally goes down the route of sort of international fishing versus these big finals, but also team versus them as well. So I was interested in going down this route. So I'm from the Northwest. So the Northwest is an insane match scene in nowadays it is, because there's so few venues, so you get massive turnouts. I mean, you go somewhere like a Partridge Lakes on a Wednesday and there'll be 90 people on it.
I've seen,
It's obviously not like the old days when you used to have 250 on the Witham, but in relative terms of today,
it's massive. 90 is a massive match now.
Big matches, So I've come from that sort of environment where everybody is very super individual, if you like, out for themselves. There is a few team matches of a couple of winter league teams of 4 and stuff, but in general, it's all about qualifiers. It's all about the big matches, and that's where. Whereas I move now to Lincolnshire, and there is more of a natural feel, more of a team feel. I think because we've got those venues on our doorsteps with them, the Trent, lots of canals, the Soars not far away, and I'm just like, wow, this is a different world from where I'm from. Now you're sort of in between the two. You're between where I am now and where I'm from. So your perspectives are quite interesting. Is that you're not as enthusiastic about the team. You're not too sure about where it goes. It's really interesting. And one of the questions that I ask a lot as well is, can you do the two? Can you go for these big money qualifiers as well as attempting to perhaps get into the international scene or doing really well in a team?
Well, I think to get into the international scene, you've got to be part of a big team, and there's not many big teams left. But you've got to be mixing with the right people. You've got to be fishing. If there is any international style matches, you've got to be fishing them. Having said that, obviously very few and far between. The Sensas Challenge is probably the only one really in the country at the minute. Although they are starting to fish things like Blood and that again at Hallcroft, I've noticed.
Yes.
I think if you've got any aspirations to be an international angler, I think you've got to join the Starlets or the Barnsley or the Dorking teams of this country, and try and get that sort of mindset about preparation and how to prepare for fishing matches with the best anglers in the country.
It's funny as well, I was shocked. So we did a podcast with Zach Brown, who obviously won the big match recently, and I was talking about match fishing in the south of England, and you just mentioned Dorking then, who he fishes for, and the amount of leagues, and you talk about decline of team fishing, was certainly in that part of the world. there's whole regions that have had to fold their winter league, and they've had to combine different. I think Dorking now fish the something like the Berkshire or the Wiltshire League or something crazy like that, whereas it always traditionally Surrey.
Yeah. I think match fishing, natural sort of match fishing down there has been on decline for a long time. But I mean, even our Winter League has only got 6 teams. I mean, when I first started fishing, there was 15 teams of 12 in the Trent division alone. So you'd have 4 pages of Angling Times matches in the Angling Times itself every week. Yeah. And I don't know where they've all gone, these anglers. I really don't, to be honest with you.
Like you say, could be chasing individual glory. It could be the whole commercial piece as well. It's comfortable. It's close by. I think most people have a reasonable commercial which is comfortable and safe, probably within sort of 10-mile drive from where they live nowadays.
So absolutely. Yeah.
Could be that as well. Tell me a little bit then about your team fishing career, international wise. So you've gone through this junior piece. You've sort of started fishing nationals at, like you say, 17, 18.
Yeah, during the Starlets when I was about 21, and obviously I was then under the eye of, Mark wasn't actually in charge of the England team at that particular time, but obviously he was relaying stuff back to people like Dick Clegg and people like that.
Yeah.
And I was doing well on the winter leagues. We had great winter leagues. We had fantastic super leagues, big super leagues in them days. And obviously
Brennan Super League, yeah.
Brennan Super League, yeah. So obviously I was doing well in them, and I can't think exactly how old I was, probably about 27, 28. In those days, Dick Clegg actually wrote me a letter inviting me to fish home international. Still got a letter somewhere.
No emails then, or text?
No emails, no. handwritten on National Federation of Angling paper, and would I like to fish home international. So that's how it started, around about 27, 28, I reckon.
Where was that? Do you remember?
The first one was at Cardiff Docks.
Yeah.
I must have gone on my own, possibly. I roomed with a very, very young Will Raisin, strangely enough, and God knows how old Will would have been then. He'd been 16, 17 perhaps.
Yeah.
And obviously we fished the Cardiff Docks. It was a deep at one end, a bit shallow at the other end, a small roach, and then some skimmer bream as well. And I did well. I won my section both days, come second overall individually, and it went from there really. And then I fished 4, 5 or 6 other home internationals in various places, Scotland and England, and I think another one in Wales, I think.
Who beat you on that first one? Who pipped you to the post?
A guy called Rob Jones. I still see now, Bishop's of Thatchers.
Welsh.
I think he beat me by 2 ounces or an ounce, something like that.
Gutted. Well, what happened to the home internationals? Is it something that could come back again, or
it needs to? It needs to. I think it's all down to money, isn't it? I suppose people, you still got to find a venue, you still got to find some accommodation, got to buy bait, and it's a bit easier for English anglers, I suppose, because a lot of the English anglers would have some kind of help sponsorship wise, tackle or bait or whatever. Whereas the Irish and the Welsh and the Scottish might not have quite to that degree, really. So I think unless it was paid for by the federations, I think it's a thing of the past, unfortunately.
It's a shame because it's you've just been talking about a lack of matches under that international style, and that would be the perfect chance for the teams to practice against each other, if you like, in a competitive environment. But that's a point. I know it's been muted, and I know from, I would say probably the feeder setup. Obviously had a disappointing World Championships this year, and there's a big fallout that come out of it where a lot of the guys have said, look, we just don't fish enough of these matches under these conditions here in the UK, and obviously it's the same for you guys in the float team. So is there designs from I know Angling Trust are making a lot of designs about trying to hold a World Championship here, but before they get carried away doing all that, should they not be running more international style matches just half of the course?
The simple answer is yes, absolutely. I mean, the England float team at the moment currently is quite experienced to a degree. We've been together a long time. We've been, all over Europe. 3 or 4 of us in that team, and that's no problem. You get a lot of experience. You've been places twice and whatever. But as we filter out, obviously, as we get older and we get filtered out, then even the youngsters that are going to take our places have not got that sort of chance of the experience, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think their experience is on the international scene as in the youth team, isn't it? Matt Godfrey and Rory, they've done all that as youngsters, so it's not doing it here in the UK under match conditions.
But it's a lot different abroad. I was very lucky. I've been to France probably twice a year for 20 odd years, fishing various events all over France. I've travelled to Spain, maybe for 5 years on the trot with people like John Desque and fishing matches in Spain, and so you learn a massive amount of stuff, fishing in hotter countries or different types of fish or whatever, So they've got to get onto that somehow. I don't know how they're going to do it, but that's what they need to do.
Difficult one. Well, with the French connection, obviously you're part of the Sensas setup. And the two questions that I've had for yourself are both around ground bait, so I might as well throw them at you now as we'll go into a French theme, if you like. Yeah. So the first one would be, what would be your ultimate mix on a natural venue? And the guy that asked this question, I know he's talking about drains in this part of the world where I am.
Well, I am quite, what's the word? I don't like to make things too complicated, so I've got a mix that I use virtually everywhere. So whether it's on the Trent or the drains, I change it slightly, but basically I use a ground bait called Canal Fine Noir as the base of it. And then if I'm on a river that's flowing, I would put Gross Gardon in and probably some soil to make it, give it a bit of weight.
Yeah.
And if I go on the drains, I'd use Canal Fine Noir and I'd use Gross Gardon Fine.
So there's two versions of Gross Gardon. Is that a sticky mix?
There's three versions. There's the black one as well. There's four versions actually now. There's the Gross Gardon, a Gross Gardon Black, the Gross Gardon Fine, and the Gross Gardon Fine Black. Is it sticky? Gross Gardon, the normal Gross Gardon is sticky, yes. You get a lot of bait in that. The Gross Gardon Fine is a little less sticky. And if you mix it with Canal Fine Noir, which doesn't stick at all hardly, it makes the perfect mix, really.
You'll like that. Well, the second one actually was linked in. You might have already answered it, but the other one was, what would be your favoured Sensas mix?
Well, those are the two ground baits that I use.
I thought they'd be linked. Yeah,
75% of my fishing, whether it's winter, summer, river, river, drain, lake. Those generally what I use 75-80% of the time.
What's the difference with the canal then? What would you swap out there?
I would probably use, in the canal, I'd probably use something like Match Blend, probably on its own, to be fair.
Okay, yeah.
That's sort of a small fish sort of type of ground bait, quite salty. You catch a lot of fish on that in the canals.
There we go. That should answer the two chaps' questions. Brilliant. Well, in terms of Sensas, how long have you been involved with them, and how does it come about? Bait development and fishing with those guys, John Desque, that you just mentioned, the legends of French fishing. It's quite a great position to be in, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. There's not only John Desque, obviously, is the face of Sensas, still is. You've got a couple of other guys. You've got Eric and also Gilles Cordan. They're both, French internationals, and there's a couple of, I think there's three. One other guy and then me, or sometimes me and Will would go, or me and Mark would go, and we'd go different places in Spain, rivers, reservoirs, and learn how to fish. Things like Caraccio, fluke fishing, and it all adds up, doesn't it? All that experience. Totally different style, isn't it? And that's totally the thing. We fished on a drain in Toledo. Like a irrigation drain, really. Fish with like 20 or 30 gram flat floats for catfish. And, so it's a massive advantage you've got. Yeah, no, totally. When you've done that for I started with Sensas in 2006. So whatever that is now, 15, 16 years. Yeah. And I've been over to France quite a lot of fishing and whatever. So. Do you have input into their range of floats? They do everything, don't they? Boxes, luggage, and all sorts. We've designed floats. Some of the UK ranges, some of the canal ones, the Kennet and Avon and the Bases. Some of the river ones, the Avons and the Thames. We've had they were our designs.
obviously ground baits. We've got a new range of ground baits out for the commercial market, fully enough, but they've been designed by us in the UK.
Yes.
There's a problem with France, you see, because they use a lot of cartogrammers in this country are made using ground crumb and fish meal and whatever else they want to put in it. Now, the French breadcrumb is something called chapelure, which is obviously French bread, and it doesn't act the same as English ground crumb. So we've had to get over that, and that's why we haven't really had any outstanding commercial ground baits until now, really. But these new ones, we've found a source of proper ground crumb, and they should be out in the next one. So I think they're out now, to be fair. So hopefully they're going to make some kind of impact on the commercial market as well.
Fantastic. Great. I think what's always interested me, and it crops up in one of the other podcasts I found quite interesting, was about the way that when we fish in summer, obviously the fish come to the surface. However, a lot of these places in Europe and overseas, when it's hot in the likes of Spain and southern France and whatnot, the last place that the fish want to be is on the surface, and they go to the bottom where it's cooler. So it's almost like the other way around. So how do you get your head around that mindset when you're fishing these different places?
Well, it's down to the fact that, like I said, we've been away so many times, so many different venues between us. You think you got over the years we've had people like Bob and you got Alan Scotthorne and Steve Gardner. Imagine where they fish. They fish more than anybody in more countries than anybody, and they just know these things, or they know they've got an idea of what's going to happen, and we can practice a little bit more advanced really than we would if we just turned up cold, really, to be honest.
Well, that knowledge then has been passed through over years and years, hasn't it? Through before Dick Clegg's reign, it's just sort of gone down. And do you know who the one name is through all these podcasts, through all the international, mainly the old school lads, who they all say was their inspiration and who has passed on probably the most knowledge for England over the last 40 years? Have a guess who they've all name checked.
I would probably say, are you going to say Kim Milton?
No, before him. He would be one that was benefited. Yeah, exactly. Everybody says Kevin Ashurst. He was the leader. He was the strategist. He was the one that learned out the feeding really quick. And they all say, that knowledge has been passed through everybody. And now you're doing the same with the new lads that are coming through as well, which is just a great way of doing things, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, he was the pioneer, I suppose, of fishing generally, never mind international fishing. When he took it to a different level, and whatever we do now is always on the back of that, I suppose, isn't it? Really.
When you was a youngster, and obviously they talk, a lot of older veterans, shall we say, which you're not in that league yet. They all talk about the glory days of the Trent and whatnot, and actually the reality of it is probably the Trent's fishing better now than it ever was. But what they're talking about, the big matches, the hundreds and hundreds of peggers. Did you ever fish against any of those old greats? Your Ian Eaps of this world, your Kevins on the river?
It's strange because the Trent was brilliant all the way through, and I lived in Derby and still live on the outskirts of Derby, and our circuit was so good in the upper Trent, we never went to the middle Trent.
Oh, you didn't? Okay.
No, right. We stopped at Burton-on-Trent, Withington, Shardlow was it was as far south as we went. We never went anywhere near Nottingham, to be honest, because the fishing was so good where we were. We had, and the matches were so plentiful. There was never any need to do that, really. It's two separate circuits almost. You'd have all those from the West Midlands coming to the upper Trent, and I think all those from like Sheffield and Lincoln and wherever went to the middle Trent, and nobody ever met up. I've got the impression. I never ever heard of people like John Dean and Dave Thomas fishing at Shardlow or Swarkston, So
it's interesting. I never even distinguished between the two. It's a really good point.
No, massive difference, and then they would never come up to us and like your Dave Harrells and your Dave Howells and Nigel Bulls would never go to Nottingham. They'd always fish at Wellington and Swarkston. But there's massive circuits on both, really.
Yeah, no, interesting. So do you still fish the river a lot now, or do you just not get a chance?
No, that is where I want to fish mostly, really, the rivers. Any rivers, really. Anything that moves is, that's where I started, and that's where I've ended up, really, wanting to fish. I only fish natural venues, really, or certainly fish the natural fish nowadays. Certainly in the summer, it's all about things like Riverfest and that. So I'm fishing rivers all the time. In the winter, I do go on commercials, but it's always for silverfish matches, which are getting more and more popular.
Well, I've
year.
seen your name pop up quite a bit on this Rycroft fishery, which looks a belting venue.
Yes, it's local. See, it's maybe half an hour from my house, from where I live, so it's perfect really for me. It's just 3 or 4 different lakes, and it's not massive weights. £30 a massive weight, really, usually. But you have to think about it. They don't give themselves up, and it's good. Yeah, I like it. And I also go to a place called Meadowlands in Coventry.
Oh yes, never fished it, but heard great things about it. Yeah,
that's probably the best silverfish commercial in the country. We fish a league on there, which is probably the most competitive league in the country again.
Is that a team league or individual?
No, just individual again. You got to be on your toes there as well, really.
No, I can imagine. I mean, I know the likes like Darren Cox and the likes.
Yeah, great Darren Cox, Steve Hall, they're all there. Swinno.
Yeah, yes.
So they're all there. It's a great event.
No, it's not one I've had a chance to get over that way, but I have heard good things about Meadowlands for sure.
Yeah, big weights on there. You need £30 every time you go, really.
Great fishing.
Great.
Brilliant.
Fishing, yeah.
Well, listen, I want to ask you about your World Championship win, because you are the last so far, the last of the individuals that we've had. You are, we want that to change. I'm sure you do too, because it's, even though you sort of got that crown, it's a case of progression, isn't it? When every time we get a new one. Yeah. So tell me about it. So it's in the Czech Republic, and if I remember rightly, reading back at the time and doing my bit of research before we touch base today, majority were bleak fishing. Is that right?
Yeah, it was a strange river. It's a big river. Powerful river, really, and but there were some fish in there. There were some big fish in there. We caught some carasio.
And on practice,
in practice, we caught some bream. There was some roach in there, definitely, and some carp. They did show one of the days on the event, but we had a lot. It wasn't fantastic fishing, and the weather was horrific. Yeah, all week, raining and windy. In fact, I remember one of the days we went on one of the practice, official practices, and the half-years never went. It was that bad. They just stopped in the hotel. And I remember on the Friday we fished on the day before the event, and it was raging rain, and all we could catch was bleak, fishing whips and that, and there was nothing else to catch. So got to Mepeg's first day. I think I drew D3, if I remember rightly. Obviously, we had a plan to put in long lines for big fish and whatever, but the main attack was going to be bleak, and they had a great match, really. Caught, I can't remember exactly, 500 and odd fish, I think. Something like that. Again, I think for about, I'm guessing really, 5.5, 6 kilos, I think. I won the section, quite easily, really. Despite, most people fish for bleak, it just seemed to happen for me.
I was going to say, was everybody else doing the same, or did you have
they were the main target species, because obviously in Europe, there's a lot of bleak in Europe, and a lot of teams are fish for them a lot, and are good at it as well, especially people like the Polish and the French, obviously, but the Polish are excellent at it. Also, surprisingly, I won the section by quite a lot, really. So there it was, a section. I think it might have even been something like third or fourth in the match, I think.
Overall sort of thing, yeah.
Overall sort of thing on day one, yeah. So that was that. Obviously, I don't think we did that. We didn't do that well first day. And what happens is now is it's the markdowns and Mark had it. So I would go into a room to do the draw, and we'd all stand outside, and basically they're doing order second day. And so Mark would then text out individual numbers to each other. We knew what section we was in, but then he'd text us a number. Or like just kicking the heels in the carpet, waiting and whatever. And this text gone through. Sean, I knew it was in A section, 33. And I've gone, all right, 33, brilliant. And I've gone, I think that's MPEG. Well, it is MPEG. And I remember Alan saying that's MPEG. And there I was on the MPEG in A section the second day.
Same tactic?
Well, no, not really. The same tactic didn't really work. I didn't catch anything on the whip. Couldn't get a bite. I fished long for bleak for a bit. I think I caught about 50 in the first hour. It wasn't really going anywhere. And we've got another plan of putting some ground bait in about 6 or 7 meters. And you could catch bleak on the bottom, and it was a bit bigger, but obviously it was a lot slower. And after about an hour and a half, I went on the bottom and started catching these great big bleak. I think I caught a little Carasio, about 10 ounce, and a couple of rota, maybe a little tiny chub, about 250 fish. And the scales come down, I think 4 kilos best, and we'd got more than that, and that was it. Yeah. I won the section.
Fantastic. And then, of course, if there's anybody on the same points from the first day, you're waiting on countback, I guess, aren't you, on weight?
On weight, yeah, but I think I was third on the second day as well individually, so it was going to be very difficult to beat me.
Yeah.
The fishing was not very good, really. So I drew on the right areas on the right days, and obviously the MPEG's massive advantage. And there we were. So the ultimate high, I guess, does it get any better than that? Probably not, no. I don't know if you know, but in 2006 I was third. And I tied on points with 2 other people and come third on weight. So I was close then, and 100 grams cost me winning it then. And then the year after we went to Poland, and that was supposed to be a bleak match. It turned out to be a roach match, and I won a section first day on that one as well. We won a section first day on that one, I think, just about. And we won it as a team. Yeah, we went there thinking it was all bleak, and maybe the odd skimmer, and it turned out it was full of roach, but nobody had ever fished for the roach. And so we fished for the roach with Joker on the hook. And nobody had ever fished Joker on the hook in Europe. They didn't know they didn't know anything about it. Well, there was one section of River Bridge that got a few big fish in it, and then there's 4 sections below Bridge that was just all roach, and we won all 4 sections first day, which is unheard of, really. You know, God, I think I was 5th that year, so it was a pretty good 2 years, really. Well, how does it work? You just said then about the other teams didn't cotton onto the Joker on the hook sort of they've never done it, I guess. Yeah. How do these practice days work? Are they not spying? Are they not trying to see what you're up to? Could they not pick up It's very difficult. People think, you can't see anything really, because there's a rope usually where you're trained, which is like at least 11 metres back. 11 metres is 33 foot. It's a long way to try and see somebody what bait they're putting on and what they're putting in the ground bait. Unless they've got binoculars, yeah. Yeah, well, they've got binoculars and that, but obviously you've got your back to them. It's it's a lot harder than you'd imagine, really. And we were obviously we'd fished, people like me and Alan and Steve and that. We'd fished a lot of Joker matches on the Staney, where it was where we wouldn't even get blood with them out. We'd just fish with 2 Joker on a big hook, an 18 or a 20. And I remember one of the Swiss guys coming over at the end of the second day and said, what you using, what size hooks, 26, 28? I've gone, no, 18s, and he just couldn't get his head around it at all. They was putting Joker on a hook as big as an 18. I don't think I'd be able to see a 26 nowadays. Yeah, no, I've not got any 26s nowadays. What we used to have in the old days, didn't we? Yeah, I don't think I could see them now, for sure. No, I couldn't. I've not got any. 22 is the smallest hook I've got now, I think. It just shows that we can teach them sometimes, doesn't it? We can teach the Europeans, whereas we've learned so much when we go to Europe fishing that obviously we've obviously teach them things when we win. Well, that's an interesting point, because now that was our last win as an English team, 2013, and up until we had a bit, won't call it a barren spell, but what we've had up until this year is these Eastern European teams, specifically the Germans as well. So your traditional oldie worldly teams of France, Italy, England, are not being lagging behind, but there's more competition, isn't there? You've got these Eastern European teams, much with Hungarians, etc. So it's more difficult. And this year we've pulled out a bronze out of the bag. So are we going to get back up there? That's right. I hope so. There's a few factors, really. The factor is that, pre-2000 or pre-1995, say, there was only ever 3 teams. There was France, Italy, and England. They used to dominate the top 3 without fail. and I'm not quite sure how that came around, but fairly wealthy countries, I suppose, in Europe with good fishing, they could afford the kit. I remember people telling me about the Russians sitting on Sensas buckets fishing a whip. In these matches, having no tackle, and now everybody's got access to the best tackle. They can all watch YouTube videos, buy magazines, and whatever. And so they've caught up very, very quickly. And the second, there's three things. The second thing is that in Europe they all fish to the same rules. They're 13-meter poles. Bloodworm, they fish every Saturday, every Sunday, and if the fish wagglers, then they have to fish sliders or whatever, things like that. And so we don't do any of that nowadays in this country. And thirdly, what was thirdly? Oh, you've got me ranting.
You tell me. Why you think of that, though? It's interesting because the bloodworm and joker piece, it's really hard to get hold of now, and especially we've got all these new import laws and whatnot. So we haven't even got access to the bait that you guys are using on the continent as much as we'd like as well.
No, I remember when I was fishing, ever since I started proper match fishing, when I was on the canals, and then I was going to do a lot of fishing on places like the Stainford and Kiwi Canal. I was getting joker on October the 1st, and I'd be keeping bait in a bubbler or a fridge up until March. I'd have fresh bait every week, and I'd fish a bloodworm and joker match every single week. And we don't do any of it. The last time I put it on was probably 2 years ago in England.
No, I can't even. I can think of one or two places where you can get it now, and it's just so difficult. Whereas I used to be able to go in my shop.
Well, not at all. They seem to be able to get it. They seem to be able to get it for Hallcroft quite well, and there's a few Midlands canal matches that circuit those. So they must be able to get hold of it. But I'll go back to my third point. Is the fact that if you look at the venues with fish, they're very alien to us. They're very different species, really. Catfish have come to the fore in Europe. We've not got any in this country, or certainly not poisson chat, which is the small ones. And there is ways of fishing for them, and we're only just starting to learn about them. So
they're the little spiny ones that you get caught in your hands.
Exactly right, and we're fishing for fish we don't know how to feed. Catfish, you've got things like narza. And so we're starting from we're way behind the curve really when it comes to these sort of things. And if you look at Portugal was catfish, there's another one that was catfish. There was another one where it was I think the river in Croatia was fishing with 50-gram flat floats just to try and slow the bait down. It was that powerful. You needed 120 grams to hold still. So very alien, very very alien venues and. It shows, I suppose, at the end of the day. It's just how it comes out of the hat, but that's how it is. And that's a bit of a leaner spell than we should have done, really.
But this year, really good solid bronze, Italian soil, fantastic. This blooding of youth, if you like. We've said Rory and the guys. So future's looking good. You fancy your chances for next year?
Yes, the future's looking very good. You've got like I say, you've got Matt Godfrey who's going to be in the team forever. You've got Cameron Hughes who should be in the team forever. You've got your Matt Derrys and your Rory Jones and your James Dent to come through. The future's looking good from that point of view. Definitely. We did well in Italy. We went last minute almost. Young team, very very difficult fishing, and we caught it with a bronze, which. And we would have took any medal on that venue. It's a very difficult venue, really.
100%. Well, I'm not retiring you yet, by the way. Obviously there's a few more big competitions in it for you. But what is the future for Sean now? I mean, is it like you say you concentrate on the rivers, the naturals in the summer? You fish in the odd Silver League in the winter, etc. But what are your plans? Are you really going to go for a Riverfest final, or are you still really concentrating on your international fishing?
No, it doesn't really sort of interfere either way, really. Going back to when we started about team fishing, there isn't a lot to aim for team fishing in my area. There's a winter league, like I say. There's maybe the Evesham team thing. There maybe the Sensas challenge if it goes ahead. And I've heard a few rumours. There's a few different things going on with the national this year, or not the national, but preceding it. But I don't know the full details. But I have fell into that trap if it is a trap, of going individual. You know, I want to fish every Riverfest final. I want to qualify for I think it's Tom Scully's Silverfish final. I've qualified for the Midland Masters on the rivers already, and there's another one around very local to us that's a big money, sort of £7,000 for the winner that have qualified. So, you know, that is going to be the future. I think for me is to carry on with England for as long as I can. You know, as long as I compete, and I'll carry on. But once that all comes down, then I think it's individual takes precedence really to a degree. I think. I mean, I do love going to Ireland. Again, how long that's going to last, but I do like going to Ireland, and I want to do some of that as well. And so there's plenty to go at.
So, do you do the Irish festival sort of autumn time?
No, I go in spring because obviously autumn time does clash with the World Champs. So I go and do. There's three festivals in May. We have been doing. Obviously, we haven't done it for the last 2 years, but that's what I was doing. There's the Marthans, there's the Classic, and then there's the Scott Memorial. So those are 3 weeks in Ireland in May that I go to normally.
Fantastic. Never been. It's definitely on the bucket list.
Have you not?
No, I heard great things. Must go. Must get across there. It's just never had a chance. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better in. I've never been in September. It is better in September. It's a bit fairer, but there's just something about it. It's obviously beautiful countryside. The fish, they're just different. The big hybrids, great big roach. Obviously, the bream are starting to come back now. It's just nice fishing, really. You know,
real wild fishing.
Yeah, really enjoy it. Really, real wild conditions as well. Obviously, it's usually, you know, rains and it's sunny in the same hour, never mind the same day. So yeah,
of course.
I do enjoy that side of it, you know, and it's good. Really do. It's a great place.
Oh, I love it. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I must say, I mean, you get loads of insight there into the international piece, into obviously, you know, how you got to where you are as well. I mean, it's not easy to map out how you get from fishing junior matches to end up being a world champion, but you give us a good idea there in a real concise way. And it's just, you've just got to work hard. You've got to have talent. You've got to do what you do, haven't you? And make it count on the day.
Yeah, I think you've just got to, you know, same as any, you know, it's the same as any sport, I suppose. I know we don't get the rewards of most sports, but you've still got to put the same dedication and, you know, selfishness, I suppose, to some degree into it, and work hard at it. Yeah, it's difficult.
Well, more to the point, what about the Rams? Are they going to stay up?
Who knows? Who knows? It's a nice thought, isn't it? Who knows?
Well, on that note, massive thank you for joining me on the podcast for the big chat.
No problem.
For all your fishing needs, be sure to check out Fishing Evolution. Boasting 2 floors of branded displays, visit our recently expanded superstore at Hadley Road in Sleaford, where we offer a huge range of tackle from all of the leading coarse and carp brands, such as Nash, Fox, Corda, Drennan, Preston, Guru, Daiwa, and many, many more. You can also follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we share all of the latest news and updates about products available in store.
Okay, so welcome to the Tackle Shed. And as said in my monologue to this podcast, a few twists and turns on this section, where I'm actually going to delve into the archives and look how tackle has evolved over these last 20, 30 years and the prices. But up to modern times, I've now got on the line Mark Greatrix from Fishing Evolution, full supporter of the podcast. And I thank you for all your support this last year. Mark, how are you doing?
No problem at all, Dave. Thanks for having us back. Yes, it's good. Everything's good. This New Year's kicking off well.
It is indeed, and a happy New Year to you and the guys in the shop.
You, yeah.
Well, the purpose of my call, and to sort of bring you on to the first podcast of 2022, is to get your industry insight into what's going to be the runners and riders for 2022. Now, first of all, give us a quick update on the shop, because last time you came on the show, we were expanding. There was loads of racking gone in. We hadn't quite got product in. Still waiting on a few more brands. So where are we in terms of brand at Fishing Evolution?
Still expanding. We've had a busy year, a really good year, which has enabled us to tick a lot off, which has been really, really. We're ahead of where we want it to be, which is also good. Really expanded a lot of the existing brands that we just couldn't fit any more in of. You know yourself, and when you walk around the shop, things have popped up from sort of 3 and 4 meters of display to 8 and 9. It's crazy, and we're already sort of filling those up. And then there's loads of other sort of sub brands that we've brought in. I know sort of Cypher revitalised the Frenzy brand, which has come out, and that seems to be going really, really well. The luggage is at a really good price point. It looks really good, so that looks set to be sort of well received for the rest of the year. Done a lot on the Predator side. Brought in brands like Spro, Rapala, Suffolk. Strengthened up a lot of the Coram Snapper, Strike King. Just completely gone to town on that whole aisle, really. I think we probably spoke last time. There's sort of so much to the Predator angler now. You get some guys who are out and out large lure anglers. You've got the dead baiters, and then you've got your sort of finesse lure style guys as well who sort of
drop shot
year round. And we do a lot of that ourselves, so it's really, really popular and passionate about that. Already got a few new brands that we're announcing for sort of 2022. Solar is one of them. There are a few more sort of in the pipeline that hopefully within the next couple of months we'll be able to introduce and mention as well, and start to squeeze into the store. And then again, I guess the focus of this chat is some of the new products that we've seen for 2022. Went to quite a few of the trade shows over October, November last year, and even this week and last week we've seen product from sort of Guru and Corda and some of the other companies of some of the new items that are coming out, which are, I'm sure, with those brands and names set to be big hit winners, really.
Yeah, no, totally. And I know when I think you just said about the Predator, I got baffled, and Bamboos were just looking at the Fox Rage stand, and now the rest of the stuff's there. Yeah. You're like, whoa, not being a Predator angler, it's a case of, where do you start sort of thing. But as we are Predator season, let's call it Predator season now, as they're fattening up before spawning and whatnot. Yeah. Has it been busy on that scene? Have you been selling your dead baits? Have you been doing really well with those new lures?
Incredibly well, yeah. We first week back, it was just apparent with how many people were coming in to do predator fishing. And the good thing is now that we do a good cross section of it. I mean, we've been doing quite a lot of dead bait style angling this year, but and towards the end of last year, we're focused on pike probably more so than we have with the sort of perch and Zander side of things. But yeah, at least we can talk with a lot more confidence and help people sort of point in the right direction with that. And I know we're personally trying to sort of broaden our fishing horizons as much as the shop's growing as well. We've been doing, I think I've mentioned before, we've been doing a bit of catfishing, and Zander's definitely on the sort of target list a lot more for us as well at the minute. So yeah, all different facets of angling that we need to be able to talk about in confidence. So it's good to broaden our own horizons, to be fair.
Dead right. You might have seen the £20 Zander that came out in the show.
I did. Absolutely. Yeah.
So, just goes to show.
It's so close and so accessible now, isn't it? And to be fair, there's been some really, knowing the Boston drains and stuff, there's been some really large pike again and perch caught on there too. So there's some really good fishing to be had.
No, absolutely.
And not too far away.
What about carp baits? Because I know last year we spoke quite a lot about, the DNA stuff was going down really well, the bug and all the rest of it. And is there any standout brands that maybe some new innovation for this year?
Yeah, so we went to the National Tackle trade show in October, and we're quite surprised to see that they're expanding their range of bait. I mean, they've got a successful sort of tour bait range with their scope bait squid and citrus, and then they've got some more sort of
tried and tested stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, they've got a few other items as well in their range that appeals to sort of anglers who are looking for sort of a bit of variation and things as well. So they're bringing out a range of liquids, quite diverse, to be fair, compared to what we're seeing with other companies, and also particles which are flavoured, such as your Scopex squid hemp and things like that. I've not seen too much about it on Ashby social media as of yet. We've got it all on order, so we'll be looking forward to squeezing that in when it's launched. I know it should hopefully be within the next sort of month or two that we start to see some of that ingot, but I think that'll go well. That looked really good. Things like worm cell, they got them all in open jars, and you can have a proper good whiff of these. And they look really, really good. So I'm sure that'll go well.
That's interesting. And you mentioned Corda, new carp gear. Any other brands for gear, reels, rods, terminal gear?
Yeah, well, I mean, just touching on the Corda thing, I mean, they've got so much to go at. I mean, they were predominantly terminal tackle over the last few years. They've started to put in all of the sort of luggage items, nets and things like that. But obviously, sister brand to Corda is Guru, and you'll know yourself from that one, Dave. They've obviously got the Aventus pole on the cusp. Actually had our hands on the Aventus landing net handles last week. Yeah, the 4 metre +1 and their F1 net handle. They're due for launch, I think, very early Feb. So we're just getting those on pre-order. They look really, really good. There's a few other bits and pieces coming out from those guys. Another brand that is sort of diversifying a little bit is Signet, which was it's part of the Cypher International sort of family. There's Aqua Tracker, Frenzy, and Signet. Signet had predominantly been sort of metalware, swingers, buzzers, hangers, catapults, and a few things like that, whereas now they've got a terminal tackle and a luggage brand. But what's been interesting about the luggage brand, and again we got to see this, I think it was just before Christmas, is they're bringing out a really, really keen price point sort of luggage range. So items at a very, very attractable rate, and that goes, I think there's a sort of like a scheduled sort of series of launches throughout the year, if you will. Hopefully, I think there's the luggage will be one of the first, and we've got racking on order for that as well. I think that's sort of the end of Jan. And then there's things like chairs and beds and bivvies, landing nets, fish care, all those kind of good things as well.
4 months they're doing then, really?
Yeah, they are, and it's a very, very good price point. I mean, you get obviously trying to cater now more for we're adding solar and brands like that to to have more premium brands in as well, but you've got to still have those price point brands in, and the gear looks really good, so I'm sure it'll go well.
Great.
It'll go well. So yeah, we've sort of bought into that one as well. Find some space for that.
We're just finishing off with I guess course match gear, if you like. Preston's did loads of stuff just before the year turned out. Obviously, new poles, bits and pieces. You've mentioned anything more with the two. I think of those two, the new racking. So I think of the map, and I think of the expansion with Preston. So those two brands, is there much more to come from Map and Preston's?
Yeah, Map, I think we'll probably expand a little bit more, as we will potentially Dyra as well, really. Dyra, sort of changing the subject a little bit, Dyra have got quite a bit coming up throughout the year as well, again, which will sort of be phased over the year.
Great.
Preston is a super strong seller, continuing to go from strength to strength. We'll definitely be expanding that. Obviously, the pole range is really, really good. We've already sold some of their poles. We're waiting for some more of those to come back in. I think, as we said last time, Dave really upped the game on their clothing range, and we've seen that. We've got a lot of their winter clothing garments in, and they sort of sold through, and we've just had top-ups of those again this week, and already items are going. So, been really well received. I think they're probably almost sort of leading the game at the minute on the clothing. I know Guru are pushing them hard, and we've got all of the sort of tri-layer clothing coming in from Matrix, but they do seem to be doing particularly well in that respect. I mean, obviously on the Matrix side, we've got all of the Horizon X luggage, which is now in the market, and that is looking really good, and has been a strong seller so far that it's been in the store as well. So I think it bodes well for those brands over the sort of coming year, really. And they're obviously not stopped there. There'll be plenty of other launches, I'm sure, in and throughout the year.
100%. Well, I guess just finishing off, just before we wrap up, footfall-wise, last year we were all excited about the fact that we'd held on to those anglers that had either began in 2020 or had rejoined the sport. How was 2021 in terms of new people coming into the sport, or was it those guys that had continued fishing from the first lockdown?
It's a bit of an odd one. It's a hard. I know it's a hard one for us to measure because we've grown year on year. So you're never really comparing apples for apples, if you like, from last year to this year. So we've always done something different. So you're expecting to see more, which we have. But I think some definitely have stayed with it. I wouldn't say everybody we saw in that mad rush when you couldn't go to the pub or go to the football game or do anything else. I don't think they've all sort of stuck with it, but there's definitely an uplift in what we're seeing. I don't know if it's that curve starting to flatten off a little bit now, but I think as we've sort of worked away to make the store bigger, we're attracting people from different areas. We're still seeing new faces, obviously, which is great. So it's sort of showing that we're getting plenty of good comments. So it's showing that we're doing the right thing in that respect. But we'll see how this year goes.
Brilliant. Well, final plug for you. The one big thing I love about Fishing Evolution is the loyalty piece. So what's your plans for the loyalty card for 2022?
So, I don't know if you've been in this year so far, but we're sort of busily renewing everybody on that one. As you know, it's an annual scheme where you can work all the way up to 10%, but once you're on the scheme, we don't start you from scratch in the new year, so you start with half the spend you got to last year. So if you hit 10%, you're already going to start the year on 5%.
I'm on 5. Yeah.
So it's incredible, because you took the box, and I think you had the Matrix platform as well, didn't you? Spending your pennies before the end of the year. But again, it is well received, that scheme, and we do know how sort of popular it is. A lot of customers do comment on it when they sort of say, "Well, how's it work?" and you sort of run through it. And I'm like, "Oh, right, fine, okay, that's pretty good," because it does add up over a year. It really does, even whether it's the odd big spend. It's not every day of the week or every week of the year that you're going to want a new rod or a new box. But when you do, they bump obviously your total up, and also just for the guys who are hitting the bank every week, the bait, the terminal tackle, it all adds up. It's easy to spend 20, 30, 40 quid, isn't it? It adds up over the course of the year. So
brilliant. Well, what we'll do is we'll probably touch base again later on in the year, see how things are going, if there's any exciting stuff that we can
definitely.
We can announce as well.
We've got quite a bit planned for the year again. Keep announcing it all on Facebook. So, hopefully everybody can keep their eyes on that. And, I'm sure there'll be more to mention and talk about next time we catch up.
Cheers, Mark. Catch you soon.
No problem. Good to speak, Dave. Thanks a lot, mate.
Okay, so big thank you there to Mark Greatrix from Fishing Evolution for giving us an overview of what could be coming for 2022. And just to finish off, as promised, we're going to just delve into the archives, just like we did in the press pack. Slightly different. We're not going to go so far back. I think 1993 was the one from the press piece. We're going to look at an edition of Match Fishing magazine, and this one is June 2001, so over 20 years ago. And the reason why I chose this one, because I was flicking through, the first thing that struck me was how thick the magazine is. There are 150 pages to the magazine. Now, there's a lot of advertisements in here, way more than we get in the most up-to-date version, so that might answer that fact. But polls, there's a section in here called the top 12, and it gives I'll give you the verbiage from the page. Modern trends dictate every matchman needs a carp pole in his armoury. We've lined up a dozen of the best buys around. Every pole listed here carries a recommended price tag of £700 or less. This is what you could get for 700 quid in 2001, specifically for carp fishing. So one thing I think that has changed since then was there was a very, very clear split in terms of you either had a carp, a strong pole, or a silverfish pole. Now poles tend to do everything, don't they? I mean, I know you've got your dedicated margin poles, but so here we go. So the Shimano Carp Cruncher, 14 meters, weighs 1,200 grams. Comes in at $599.99. The Abu, crikey, last time Abu brought a pole out. Abu Agenda Carp, 13 meters, 915 grams, £649.99. These come with one standard top 4 kit and 2 extra carp top 2 kits. The Daiwa TDP 111, 13 metres, 856 grams, comes with 3 extra carp top 2 kits, £699. I'll pick one more as an example. FAPS. Does anybody remember FAPS? FAPS FR250, 13 metres, 1100 grams at 13 metres. Comes with 2 extra carp top 2 kits, £699.99. So that gives you an idea of what they were promoting pole-wise back in 2001. I also come across a section around bait, ground bait. It's called Kickstarters, this one. It says water temperatures are still low, which is strange because this is June 2001, so they shouldn't be low by then, but it talks about using a potent ground bait to kickstart a slow swim. Now, they list 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 ground baits, and there's only 3 of these, I think, that are still around to this day. So first of all, it highlights marine halibut pellet from Dynamite, which is still a massive seller, £3.50 at the time for a kilo bag. Also, Swim Stim Green, £2.79 for a 900 gram bag. So they're the 2 that we know still sell really well. There's Crazy Bait Gold from Sensas. I think that's still around, £3.99 at the time. But then you've got some baits here that are long gone. Anybody remember Silly Bait? I remember that. I used to buy the black one. Silly Bait, £3.95 for a kilo. Vandeninde Carp Dust, TNT Carp Porridge, £2.99 for a 500 gram bag. PA Mega Bait Carp Powder, £2.85 for 900 gram bag. Manic Carp Fish Meal by Mazzella, £2.75 for a kilo. And Super Carp Net Buster by Cats and Dogs. Do you remember them? Cats and Dogs. They used to do some great hookable pellets. I used to get the monster crab ones. I remember them. £3.49 for a kilo bag. Let me skip to the finally, just before we wrap up, skip to the new tackle section just to see what was out in June 2001. So you had a new Daiwa rod. It was a Daiwa Harrier Z Mark II, 13 foot. It's £94.99. What is this? Shakespeare Bionic Braid, £16 for 100 metres. Preston Reflow Direct Mono. This must be one of the first low diameters, I guess. $5.99 from 0.12 up to 0.28. A Milo Platform, $79.99. So it just gives you an idea. What else have we got here? Champion Elastic is a solid elastic. Champion brand might not mean a lot to you, but this new range of brightly coloured elastic is produced by accessories expert Future. Remember Future? They're the guys that took over Image. £1.25 for that solid elastic. Let's just finally jump to one of the adverts. There's loads of adverts in it. It's crazy. And try and find... So Dance and Angling, here we go. This will do. Dance and Angling were advertising at the time a Milo TARDIS 8-drawer box, footplate side tray, £450. Daiwa Super Deluxe Matchman range, they still do that now. Hold all, net bag, carry all, groundbait ball, $69.99. What else have they got on offer? A Boss 6-drawer box, £305. So, let's just pull a rod out of interest as well. The old Daiwa, we got there, Connoisseur Stillwater Feeder Rod, £199, down to £119. So yeah, brings back some memories flicking through this, and we'll keep doing this over time. We can go further back in time, or we can go a bit more modern. But yeah, 21 years ago, you were talking £700 for a carp pole, which pretty much looks like they weighed a ton, with very few top kits. How times have changed. So that's it. That is the end of our first podcast of 2022. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for listening. Please share, please subscribe, please like, all that jazz. And we'll speak on the next one. Thanks for listening.